iPhone application design, and my moderator was Dr. Ravi. So how did this all start? I started with an idea. I knew I wanted to do iPhone programming, but I had no clue where to start with this all. So I thought of this really great idea. I play guitar, kind of, and I was looking for an app one day that just kind of presented guitar application, guitar tablature on your iPhone, so you can travel with it and take it wherever you want to go. So I looked on the App Store and failed. So I was like, this is great. I got an idea. I'm going to do this. So I knew it needed to be easy. Okay, and that was the difficult thing. It had to have a very easy graphical user interface. That's all about the iPhone. So I wanted it kind of like the Guitar Pro for the computer. I don't know if you guys have ever used this program, but it kind of looks, I'll show you a quick little demo. Another Led Zeppelin, sorry guys.
I love Led Zeppelin.
So play something like this. You got the standard music, and then here's the notes of the guitar. You can't really see it, but it kind of shows you exactly what you're supposed to play in time that you're doing it. Like that. So I wanted something like that for the iPhone. I thought of iTab. Thought it's an iPhone application, so it had to have an I in it, you know. Looks like this, or even better, like that.
Cool.
So, step one, since the iPhone was all about graphical user input, I needed a good design, something that looked cool, that was easy to use. So, I needed it to play guitar tablature, so something that would look like that. Needed to download web content because I wanted the user to be able to look through and just be able to download any songs. So, for instance, here, user could download Trying to Grove or whatever. And then have a setting page where the user could change something. So have available like guitar effects. So change it to distortion, something fun like that. So I don't know how many of you guys have actually done iPhone application programming, but just a quick overview. There's three main tools that you use. You use Xcode. It has your classes, and then just all kinds of code. It's all in Objective-C. And then you use your interface builder to build your actual user output with all that kind of stuff. And on the left, you can see that the view search bar, you can just drag this onto the view. And then Macs have an iPhone simulator. So this I'll show you in a second. You got a little iPhone here, and then a console debug right here. So I'll show you guys what I made. So we build it, go. Boots up. It's installing it in the simulator right now. So cool little loading screen. Okay, so from this screen you can choose whichever song you want to play. Due to copyright rules, I didn't want to go too crazy with this. So a simple one, you choose the song you want, hit play. It says you want to shred it up. Go ahead. So then it shows your song name, who's the artist, how many beats per minute, the time signature, and then your simple guitar tablature. And when you hit play, my gosh, it plays along with you. So pretty simple. And then once it hits the end, it's gonna flip over to the next sheet. Something simple like that. And then you have user controls where they can go back, measures, that goes back to the beginning, and then you can feed through the measures. After that, you can go home. Then I was able to put in some guitar effects, like I showed you guys. You turn on your guitar effects. You can change jazz to distortion. Those are the only two I really implemented. So put it on distortion. And Listen to Mary had a little lamb on distortion. It's pretty cool. It kind of sounds weird, but they play. So that's kind of how it goes. I think we all know get into that. So and then another thing, I tried the downloadable user content. Right when the console boots up, right here, if we have an internet connection, it's going to see if it can download the plist. I have just a simple property list on my Sonoma public HTML, and it downloads that and sees if there's any songs that are available. So right now, and that fills, if we go over here to my downloads page, it shows the available content, available downloads. As you can see here, the artist name is Downloads, and song name is just Trials. Real simple. So when we select Get Content, it starts downloading all the content. And then once it's done, it says Successful Download. Come back over here, and as you can see, that it hasn't implemented into it. I found this out at the very end that I kind of configured it incorrectly, but that's all fun. But easily fixed. You just hit this refresh button, and it reloads this right in there. The trial song's there. Hit play, and shred, and then you can. On this one here, I'll change it over to jazz, so you guys can hear some jazzy guitar. So I'll change it over to jazz. Play. And I believe this is the A major. And this, I also wanted to implement a higher beats per minute. So this one's going at 250 instead of 120, just to see if it can keep up with it. So, and it did. So that was cool. Yeah, so that was the main project. It had all the resources that I was looking for. But I don't think I'm going to publish it to the iTunes store just because of copyright stuff. I don't want to get in the whole tablature battle with Metallica. So,
maybe you should.
Yeah, so that was the main thing. And I just wanted to talk about Interface Builder for just 1 second, because I don't know how many of you guys are looking to get into iPhone applications. It's really fun. One thing I really found I had a great time with was designing the interface, and that was the coolest part, being able to find a cool one. Yeah, this one. So this is the simple interface builder, and being able to interact your code with the buttons and having function calls just straight out of this kind of thing, and it's really quite simple to play around with, and then dealing with that. So if you guys are interested into this whole topic, I had a few resources I wanted to show you guys that I definitely found very helpful. This Learn Objective-C on the Mac. I really like all this A-Press stuff. They have the best readable content. iPhone 3 development. If you guys do get into it, make sure it's iPhone 3, because I bought iPhone development, and with the iPhone 3 package that came out, it was a huge difference. And also iPhone.devsdk.com. Really smart people that can help you out. So, and cool thing about the books is that they're all available on the electronic reserve at Sonoma State. So, yep. And that's the presentation. Any questions or anything?
Stanford released released a whole lecture series on iPhone development. Did you find that useful, or did you use it?
I did watch all of them, and I did follow along with the courses, so I did all the homework assignments and stuff like that, and it was also great. iTunes U, I think it is, so really helpful, cool stuff. So.
All right. Who's next?
Well, before anybody, if anybody wants to eat some more, this is the time.
Seconds.
From Matt Shetler now, and this turned over to Matt.
Hey, so I've been working with Greg over there. Got this internship last semester, working with racestedman.org, converting it and updating the website into a much newer website. 'Cause as you'll see, it looked kind of old, and it was a lot of fun trying to introduce it and upgrade it to the current web standards and everything. So racestedman.org, Ray is his pastor, and he's got a whole lot of content, and he threw it up all on this website, and from what we could tell, he hand-coded HTML by hand, and it was all very messy, but he had a website and it worked. There was just a ton of content, and really the biggest challenge for us was being able to manage all this content and bring it over and put it into one simple, easy-to-use, easy-to-browse website. So as you can see, he has 58 different books that he's written. Most of them are on the website online, so we had to bring all those over. He's got over 10,000 pages of content and a whole bunch of audio MP3s that correlate to each of his sermons that he's written. You can pull up a page, see a bunch of text that he's written, and then you have an audio file that goes along with it. So what we decided to use, instead of, his old website was just a standard HTML website, and so we decided to use Drupal, which is an open source, completely free content management system, which is, it's written in PHP using MySQL. We found very, very useful, very modular. You can customize everything, write your own stuff, do this, bring in something that someone else has written to get some cool effect or something. It's a very cool system. All right, so that's it with the PowerPoint. Let's just go in and I'll show you his old website. Does that show okay? All right, so this is his old website. It's very basic. You can click in here and go, and you get a huge list of various sermons that he's done on various gospels. So you can click in here, and you'll see a whole bunch of different things you can click on. And if you go into one, it's really just text, and there's 10,000 of these or something. Hard to navigate. There's no real search. He's got a little Google search, something like that. So what we had to do is we had to handle all these files, okay, and we had to bring them into something that can be imported into Drupal. And Drupal uses the MySQL database, and every time you load up a page, it'll pull from that and dynamically generate the page. So we had to figure out how to convert this HTML into this database format. So what I had to do is I went in and I wrote a whole bunch of PHP scripts, which you pass it a bunch of given HTML files, it'll go through, it'll parse all the files, it will output an XML file based on that HTML file. And XML is a transitional language where the output is something, let's see, I think I have it. Yeah, so here's an XML file of one of, after parsing one of the HTML files, you can see the sermon number, you've got the title of that particular work, you've got the section that it was in, the author, the date, and stuff like that. And it's very, very easy to read. And once you have it in an XML form, you can easily import it into Drupal, into the database. All right, so like I said, the old website. Let's go to the new one. It's kind of stretched, but
if you just hit your green plus, then it'll size it to the window.
There we go. All right, thanks. So here, this is Web 2.0. This is a dynamic page that's loading. Different things will pop up on here based on the day. So each day a new devotion is given. We've listed some of his books here. We've got a whole bunch of things you can click through. So let's go back to Ephesians, where we're. So here's a new landing page where you can go through and you can find all his different things. And another cool thing that I wrote was, so we've got this reference right here, Ephesians chapter 1, verses 1 through 14. Nobody knows what that is, okay? And if you see that, it's not going to mean anything. No one's going to go to a Bible and go look it up and be like, okay, now I know what that is. So what we did is we wrote a function that you pass it a reference like this, and it will go out and it'll find, using a website that catalogs the Bible and has everything listed, it'll go out and it'll actually pull that information. It'll go find Ephesians chapter 1, verses 1 through 14. And then when you mouse over it, it'll show you exactly that. And for each one of these, you can see exactly what that reference means. So you don't have to, you know, oh, what was John 1 through 5? I don't know, you know. You can just mouse over right there. And all of these little tooltip things are generated and stored in the page HTML. So when the page is loaded, it doesn't go out and it doesn't fetch this off another website. It's all stored locally on this page, so there's no delay between mousing over all of these. And we're not basing this tooltip off of another server, so it's not having to rely on someone else's web server to go get this data. It's all stored right here. Similarly, for these various sermons, we've got little teasers that you can sort of get a little summary of what it is, and see if you're interested in reading one, you can click in. And so we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on this page. We got all the text is still there, and it's a little bit nicely formatted. We had a function that would go through and take some old HTML and sort of parse through it and update it and fix errors and standardize everything, really, so that everything looked nice. We've got related content over here, some similar things. So if you're reading this, you know, maybe you want to see this or this. There's also a little MP3 thing here. You can click through and it'll start playing an MP3 based on his speech through this as he's giving this. And so, all right, so that's basically what we have up for the new website right now. It's not launched yet. We still got a little bit of ways to go, but let's see what else. So here's some of the scripts that I've written. Here's the. So when I said it goes through and it parses some of the verse I just will take Ephesians 1 through 4. Here's what it's stored as in an XML form. So here's Ephesians 2 verse. So here's verse 1. Here's the content and the data for that. You know, here's verse 12. So if you want to see Ephesians 1 through 5, it'll go through here and it'll pull 1 through 5 off of this, and there's that data right there. So one of the things we had to do is we wanted to implement a search into the site, because he was just using some Google search, Google indexed it. You know, it works okay, but whatever. So someone searches for something specific like John chapter 1, 3 through 6. We want to get some content that Ray did that relates to that section that they're looking for. So what we had to do is we had to write a search parser, which will take someone's input and find out what they really meant by it and what they really want based on that. So what we have here in this particular file is a whole list of abbreviations where these various books can be abbreviated using these little shorthands. And so what this does is if someone's searching for Psalm and they type in Psalms or any of these abbreviations, it will convert it and we'll change it to that and whatnot. And then there's also, so this file populates a data structure based on what they're searching for. So every search query is going to have a start point and end point. So they want some scripture that starts here and then ends here. And so what this does is it can handle a whole bunch of different search types, and it uses regular expressions for the most part to sort of standardize what they search. So if they typed in an abbreviation, they use a Roman numeral 1 instead of an actual 1. They use like Roman numeral 3, it'll convert that into an actual 3, and it'll go through and do all these various things, and it matches these strings and figures out what they were looking for, and then it will therefore be able to find the right section that they were looking for and be able to return to them exactly what they were meaning to find. Okay. What else is there? So this whole process was a lot of fun for me, learning PHP and learning how to handle really importing stuff into a new environment, because we'll have this script that'll go through and handle these 10,000 HTML files, convert them all over, and then we have to import them all, which takes a good bit of time and populates this database. And then now when you go on this new website and you're querying this page, it actually is going to run a query on the database and dynamically pull up this information and give you what you want. So I was mainly in charge of the back end on this. The front end was done by someone else. All this nice theme was done by a web theme designer person. That wasn't me. Unfortunately, I wish I could do that kind of stuff. Okay, so any questions on the work here?
You use some C data tags in your XML?
Yeah, because XML, for example, it's got all the tags begin and start with, less than and then a greater than. So if in the data that he was writing there was some like a tag like that, it would get misinterpreted and cause a whole bunch of problems. The C data tag wraps around it and says, okay, anything between this is all sort of protected and safe, and interpret this as data. Don't interpret this as like tags or weird things. And there's also characters that aren't allowed, some other things. So that protects sort of the content.
You didn't put any images in there or anything like that XML? No. Just okay.
How long have you been working on this?
Oh man, we started
Beginning of the summer.
Yeah, beginning of the summer. Yeah, a lot to. We've been doing a lot of work on it. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
The one thing that Matt didn't mention that I thought was really cool, you guys saw the code that Matt wrote that looks like a scriptural reference and tries to figure out what it is. Well, that piece of code also, if it can't figure it out, will list a set of guesses, kind of like what Google does.
Yeah.
So that was a very unanticipated, cool function that Matt put together.
Yeah. So here's an example of something someone could search for. So they're looking for 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 1 through 14, and then 1 Corinthians chapter 10 through 14 through chapter 11, 1. Each of these little text strings will get parsed and handled properly, even though, for what it's worth, they're completely different. Because if you know about the Bible, there's many different ways to reference a certain chapter, and not everyone uses sort of a standardized, normal way. People do their own little things to an extent, and whatnot. So it's difficult. This site's used a lot by pastors that are trying to write some of their own sermons and whatnot, and they might have their own way of referencing something, and if they can't find it, they're going to get uninterested and lose interest. So we got to make sure we handle all the different cases and everything. Any other questions?
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
You need to refresh on your pizza. I think there's a little bit more there. And he will be speaking about some work he did this term in a special topics course with Dr. Kushesh.
My topic combines both mobile and web-based technologies, and it's called Status Delivered. It's basically an application to be used by a courier company, and on the website at the courier office, they can input data into the form, and data is stored in various ways that I'll show you later. And then there's an actual Java bridge that sits on the web server and runs continuously, and then the BlackBerry on the BlackBerry end connects to the Java bridge, checks to see if there is something to download, and if there is, it downloads it. So the different things I used, HTML, PHP for the website, SQLite 3 instead of MySQL for the database, but for all intents and purposes it works just like MySQL as far as what I use it for. For the bridge and for the BlackBerry, it's Java, and included with that, I had to use sockets so that they can communicate, because there was no built-in socket support on the BlackBerry. It all had to be created. And for the BlackBerry programming, I used the Eclipse integrated development environment, and specifically the BlackBerry plugin. And I'm kind of sad I had to run it on my 7-year-old laptop, because my laptop is Windows, but my home computer is Mac. But the BlackBerry plugin for Eclipse is not Mac compatible. So I already mentioned those. There's the website, the bridge, and the BlackBerry. So basically 3 components. And we'll move over to the demo. Here's the website, landing page, and navigational tools, of course.
What language was that?
So the
What language was that?
What language was what?
The Latin.
Oh, it's just lorem ipsum. It's just standard typesetters to fill in space.
Okay.
You know, I didn't want to bother writing a marketing spiel for a fictional company. So, you know, basic input form, input a career. I'm not going to show you that table just because of time constraints. So there are basically three main data types in the database. There are couriers, routes, and stops, and they're related in different ways. It starts with the courier, and the couriers have an ID. And then when you move over to the route, I'll go ahead and show you that one. This is dynamically generated based on the couriers that exist in the database. And if we view the existing routes, then this is the route name, and then each route has an assigned courier. And that is modifiable. I'll show you that later as well. And then this is the actual, this is the main thing here is the stop. Because that is the individual stops are what get uploaded to the BlackBerry. And again, route is dynamically generated, so if you add a new route, it will show up in this list. And then the stops are organized in the database. Each stop has a route ID with it. That's why I had to choose the route from the list. And then this table just breaks it down into routes. So when you upload a route to the bridge, then that route information is actually just written to a text file. And then the bridge transmits it by the socket to the BlackBerry. And then here's my upload, and then you just select the route to be uploaded. So move over here to Eclipse, and I'll go ahead and just run. And like Brendan, it's just a simulator. This is going to take a moment to start. Honestly, the hardest part of the project was learning how to use Eclipse because, you know, for all my classes, I just do C++ in Emacs. So using a big tool like this was interesting. And I don't know why, but probably just because my laptop is so old. For about the first 2 months of the semester, I couldn't even use the debugger because it kept coming up with this arcane error that I could find no solution to. Eventually, I got that working, and that made development much easier. Because it's hard finding, you know, out of bounds arrays and all that kind of stuff without a debugger to tell you exactly where it happened. You just kind of have to guess.
The binary search.
What's that?
The binary search method.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's eliminate things one at a time. All right, and like I said, this will take a moment because my laptop is 7 years old.
Yeah, the BlackBerry's kind of slow.
Yeah.
The black phone.
So, and the way the data is located in the BlackBerry itself is called a record store, and that's internal to the BlackBerry. So the data is going to persist until it's actually cleared from the record store. And so I kept it that way so that, you know, you close out the BlackBerry or the application or you turn it off, the record store persists. That way you can still have the root when you come back. But then in order to download a new root, what I did is I added a menu item just to delete the root. So this is the previous stop and the next stop. So this particular route has 3 stops. Go through those. I'll get to these buttons in a moment. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and delete this route. So we have a blank. And then I'm going to go over here. And I do have one little hack. And that is I was having permissions problems with the text file because the bridge looks at 2 text files that are generated by the web page. One is an action file, and then the other one is the actual data file. The bridge, when the web page writes the action file, it puts a 1 in there, indicating to the BlackBerry that there's new information to download. When the bridge transmits the data to the BlackBerry, it writes a 0 to the existing action file to indicate that there is nothing else to so that the next time the BlackBerry checks, because the BlackBerry checks once a minute. So, so what was I saying? So the bridge writes a 0 to the action file to indicate to the BlackBerry that there is nothing new to download. So I was running into problems because the web user, when the file gets written, is actually Apache. It's not me. But the other files are me. And even when I assigned the read and write permissions, so that supposedly the files should have been writable by the bridge user, which is me, it still ran into problems. So my little hack is I just have to put a 1 into the action file. And then I can run the and then come over here to BlackBerry, and it does, like I said, automatically check once a minute, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to force it to do an update. And this is that error that I was getting this morning for the first time. So, and it's so strange. It was working fine all week, and then this morning I was testing it one more time, and I'm getting this odd error. So, let's try one more time. Okay. So this is the actual echo from the bridge. So you can see here that this is the actual data that was uploaded to the BlackBerry. The BlackBerry does not automatically refresh, but I just set it so that when I hit either of these buttons, it just refreshes the screen. So these are the different stops. So the BlackBerry has an existing map application, which is actually pretty easy to use. And so I was able to integrate that. And so right now you can see our address is 2751 4th Street. And then if I hit map, it just invokes the BlackBerry map application. And it'll show you a visual map of where it is. Since it's a built-in app, it obviously has different functions here. And so that's kind of cool. You can just call that up. And then I also added route. I'm going to change the stop here. So 915 Village Court. What route does is it just gives you driving directions. The default start address, I use the address for SRJC, just basically as the courier office. So until that gets changed, when you hit route, then it will do from the default address to the selected address. So right now we're at 915 Village Court. So it does a little search. And so we go from 1501 Mindo to 915 Village Court, all your driving directions, and then again you can view that on a map. And then I added a set start so that once you leave the office and you're somewhere else, you want to get from that place to your next stop. So we'll go to the first stop. So if I set start, then that will set our start address as the current selected address. So if I do it here, it will be 2751 4th Street. And then if I go to a different address and then I go to route, then it will give us our 4th Street to, I think it was Village Court that was selected, Farmers Lane. So it's all dynamic, and it pulls everything out of the record store that it needs. And let's see. There is one more thing, actually two more things on the website I'll show you real quick. Let's see. Just in the interest of completeness, I added a little database operations page. So you can delete a courier, reassign a courier to a different route. So we want Dennis to do ROPO, then we can do that. You can delete a stop. You can clear a route, which will delete all the stops from that route, but leave the route itself intact. Or you can just delete the route entirely. And like I said, that was just for database completeness, because I didn't like the idea of just having everything go in and then not being able to change anything. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. So, and another thing that's a little artificial here, when you put in the stop, you have to put in the latitude and longitude, only because I could not find an easy way to convert a street address to latitude and longitude. And when you call the BlackBerry map application, it has to have a latitude and longitude. So, that'd be another workaround. That's pretty much it for the demo. So like I said, using Eclipse, that was something new. Java itself, I've used Java for maybe 2 small projects in 2 other classes, but apart from that, we use C++ here. So it's not that different, but it has a lot of tools and all those APIs that do so much. They're a little hard to learn sometimes. With any project, it seems like towards the end of the project, the progress that I make, every week is equivalent to the entire progress that I made for the months before it. So that's always a little frustrating to me because at this point in the project, I have all these great ideas that I want to implement, but the semester's over, so maybe I'll work on this or not because I'm going to be getting a real job. But and that's another thing. I quit my full-time job that I worked at for 11 years. I just quit that 2 months ago, and I'm very happy because it gave me time to work on this. And that was actually a big thing. I was like, well, I don't really have time to work on my senior project. Maybe I'll just quit my job. So I quit my job. So that was nice. I have more time to work on it. But yeah, so that's my project, and hope you all like it. Any questions?
Tell us about your next steps a little bit more.
So BlackBerry input would be that the driver can either input a stop themselves or update the notes field and have that information transmitted back. So for instance, if you go to a stop and the driver runs into an issue that they need to relay to the office, they can just change the notes field, upload that stop back to the bridge, and then that will get pulled back up by the web page. And then two-way communication just piggybacks right on that. Yeah.
What happens if the driver disagrees with the route?
The driver can select the order of their stops themselves. That's not something done. And that's something else I wanted to add too, is they can to mark a stop complete. But yeah, they just get a list of stops, and then obviously the office I think would put in the order for efficiency. Any other questions?
Are you looking to implement this in a specific for a specific company, or
no?
Oh.
No, it was just a project. Yeah, it would be nice though. Make a little money. All right.
Well, thank you, Will.